It's Epstein Week in America, and nobody seems to know what that means, but everyone's pretty excited about it. There was a one-person sing-along in Venezuela. The New York Fed had an emergency meeting and then tried to keep it a secret, and that's never good. Kevin Hassett struggles with math. Angelina Jolie's dad is super mad and super racist. FD Signifier dropped a long-awaited knowledge bomb about sinners. Hannah Arendt, sadly, still relevant. Signs of life from the left, from an unlikely red state. Kristi Noem breaks the law and the bank with her new I'm a hot person on a horse campaign, and bringing back SNAP isn't a snap. But this is on the record from UNFTR for the week of November 17th, 2025, so let's go. UNFTR. You know, as a New Yorker, I was pretty excited for the holidays. My wife and I moved out of the city many years ago, but we still have friends and family there, so we spend a lot of time in the city during the holidays. But now, I'm not so sure. Because the actor who gave us both Angelina Jolie and one of the greatest American anti-war soliloquies on film in the movie Coming Home issued a dire warning to us all.
Let's go to the videotape.
This city will turn into a forbidden place of darkness. The blood, sweat, and tears that the city of New York was built on will turn into a virtual refugee shelter for the radical Muslim ideology. This is now the most dangerous time for our citizens of New York. This mayor will destroy this city.
You dick!
President Trump made a declarative statement about the potential for war in Venezuela, saying, quote, "I've sort of made up my mind." Well, we don't have to be mind readers to see what's going on.
The USS Gerald Ford is set to join major military exercises that are scheduled to begin today off the coast of Venezuela. The U.S. has already put more than a dozen warships and 15,000 troops in the region as tensions with Venezuela continue to rise.
Interesting phrasing here. Tensions continue to rise. It almost makes it seem like we're not launching a unilateral and unprovoked attack on a nation without declarations of war from Congress. I can only imagine that Venezuela is building up its arsenal and defenses and preparing for an epic battle.
Imagine us people.
I think somebody needs to get a message to Maduro that we're a little unhinged at the moment. Hey, speaking of war, Americans are canceling plans to hunker down and revisit the moment of our birth, when a handful of slave-owning white men declared that they would no longer be shackled by a foreign government.
From a small spark kindled in America, a flame has arisen, not to be extinguished.
That's right. It's Ken Burns' time in America. His new documentary clocks in at a mere 12 hours, and if you start now, you might be finished by Thanksgiving. To find some common ground with your crazy MAGA in-laws about a time that we won something. And speaking of Thanksgiving, the holidays are a bit muted this year due to the exorbitant food prices that have everyone stressed out. Everyone except the White House reps who look increasingly like they're appearing in hostage videos when they try to defend Trump. Here's Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett getting fact-checked in real time about food prices at Walmart.
Let's go to the videotape.
The president claims that Thanksgiving costs are down 25%. I mean, does he know that's not true?
Well, if you look at Walmart and the few places that put out their prices of Thanksgiving baskets.
Wait a minute. I got to stop because the Walmart comparison's like not a thing. I mean, Walmart had a Thanksgiving package last year. They've got a Thanksgiving package this year. The one this year contains much less than what the one last year took. So that's why the price is less. Look, we got a chart here. Last year, it was 21 total products. This year, it's 15. Total number of items in those products was 29% now. 29, now it's 22. There's more generic brand stuff. So, I mean, Thanksgiving, if you're going to the store to buy groceries for Thanksgiving, it's going to be more expensive this year.
I really don't understand where you're going in the sense that Joe Biden gave us 20%
He's not
inflation.
president. Donald Trump's president.
No, and you want us to fix the hole that Joe Biden
I'm
dug
saying,
right away.
Why does the president tell everybody
the prices went up so much under Joe Biden, and inflation is way down.
Horse shit!
Hey, Kev, Joe Biden doesn't even remember that he was president, let alone Americans. This is your economy now, buddy boy, and it's time to start owning it. In fact, Let's talk a little bit more about that in Mac's notes. It's a significant moment for the U.S. economy, and I'll get there in a moment. But it's important to address the story that is once again dominating the headlines.
This week, the U.S. House of Representatives will hold a vote on whether or not it will release all case files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Their release could be politically explosive for President Trump and the issue causing a rift within the Republican Party.
A PSA dropped this week by several of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring to push lawmakers to finally do the right thing and release the case files related to prior inquiries.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
This was me
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This PSA, a call to action, urging Americans to make their voices heard ahead of that vote to try to force the release of the Epstein Files.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's a reminder that there's more to this story than Marjorie Taylor Greene and her spat with Trump. Mike Little Johnson and the White House appear to be out of options to withhold the release of these documents, as it appears the House has the ability to now make them all public. And this release would be in addition to a trove of emails that has tongues wagging about who Bubba is, that Larry Summers sought dating advice from Epstein, and how everyone has always hated Donald Trump. But lost in the salacious details is the victims themselves, who are rightfully putting their stories back into the spotlight. That is the definition of courage. Now, from a political perspective, cracks are beginning to show in MAGA world, it's true. And there's a growing sense that this might prove to be Trump's Achilles heel, though I'll believe it when I see it. That said, Trump posted just last night that he's ready to move on, to release the files, saying, "I don't care," because he wants to talk now about affordability, the thing that he's always cared about, except last week when he didn't.
The reason I don't want to talk about affordability is because everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump.
Look, I'm the socioeconomics guy. I'm not the legal guy. So I have no idea whether there's a legal path forward to prosecute a sitting president, considering he now has full immunity from the Supreme Court and was also able to run for the presidency as a felon. But there's a renewed energy on the Democratic side of things, a sense that Trump is feeling cornered and increasingly isolated from GOP legislators. And we'll see. Like I said, it's unclear as to what the legal ramifications are from more evidence that Donald Trump is a scumbag who rapes underage girls, because he appears to have total immunity. But if it's paired with a precipitous decline in the markets and a cataclysmic holiday season, I can imagine a few Republicans breaking from Trump for their own self-interests. This is an incredibly cynical thing to say, of course, but it has to be said. If we were in an economic boom time and everyone was feeling really good, they could produce the infamous P tape and have video evidence of him engaging in sexual deviant acts with underage girls, and the GOP would just look the other way. So if the coming weeks and months are as bad as I think they're going to be, then a few brave and heroic GOP legislators might finally start pushing back on the president's agenda. And since he governs with the slimmest of majorities in Congress, Trump may indeed be entering a premature lame duck presidency. Now, in terms of what's ahead, we have two interesting announcements this week that should drive market sentiment. NVIDIA and Walmart are both releasing their earnings. Now, it's unclear how much longer NVIDIA can keep creatively accounting for the circular AI investment flow, and the market isn't sure whether an increase in Walmart revenue is a good sign or a bad sign for the economy. So these releases are going to grab all the headlines, but below the proverbial fold, there are much bigger stories brewing. For example, as we're going to talk about in the chart of the week, there was an emergency session called by the New York Fed to address the continuing liquidity crisis in the overnight repo markets, something that we've talked a lot about. Now, an emergency meeting is pretty bad on its face. The fact that they tried to keep it secret is another matter entirely. So we have Democrats frothing over the idea that Trump might finally take a PR hit that even MAGA cares about, Fed officials trying to paper over a liquidity crisis, an earnings season that the whole financial world is on pins and needles over, and an angry and broke America about to head into the holidays with empty pockets and a whole lot of anger at the Thanksgiving dinner table. I got to tell you, my spidey senses are tingling. We are 5 weeks down with only one to go in our fall Fund, Friend, and Hellraiser period, and it's going great. I got to thank everybody for participating. We started this period around 450 members, and we're at 540, so we are getting super close to our goal of 600 members to close out this year. It's a stretch, but I think we can do it. So thank you to our new and returning members. We've got Lee, Law Time, Sassy Steph, Carol, Just Jen Period, Wow Nix, Demand Side, Recluse, AKB, Midwestern, Malcontent, Bill, LMF, Paul Pomes, Hamlin the Wizard, Leilani, Bald Peak, SD Sue, Sangre de Sasquatch, John M., Ruth M., Aunt Betsy, Gary, Golly, Janie Yellen, who I don't think is Janet Yellen, but I'm going to pretend that it is. Badger Refugee, Arcadius, King Mob, who is a boss in our Discord, by the way, Beaumath, and Keelan. Okay, time for Killer Left Take of the Week. Now, I don't have a video clip of this, so I'm just going to describe it because I don't want to spoil anything. And also, it's a 90-minute video, and it's not like there's a single hot take on it, so bear with me. KLTW goes to FD Signifier. Now, this one is the definition of think piece. FD Signifier, if you don't know him, is a black Marxist educator who's become one of the most influential figures in modern black thought. Now, if you love the movie Sinners, for all the white guilt reasons that many of us did, you're all good. But this narrative goes way deeper than most people can appreciate. FD Signifier's breakdown is almost as long as the movie, but in my opinion, it's required viewing for anyone who is interested in authentically learning and appreciating the perils of creating commercial black art in America. So definitely go check it out if you get a chance. It's called The Hidden Truth Behind Sinners. All right, for Chart of the Week, we're going back to some well-worn territory, but for good reason. I'm going back to the arcane Federal Reserve repo market because it continues to signal liquidity distress in its overnight funding markets. The Secured Overnight Financing Rate, or SOFR, which is a composite of actual rates that banks pay to settle transactions, is still pushing the upper bounds of the federal funds rate. In other words, counterparty risk exists somewhere in the market, and the Fed has to keep stepping in to maintain rate levels instead of the market doing it, and it's supplying liquidity. So this is why the Fed has been so reluctant to make any big moves. They know there's a problem, but they can't fully identify where it's coming from and the extent of it. So this is something that we've been harping on for months and months, but it is yet to creep into the mainstream until maybe now. A piece in the Financial Times on Friday has caused a bit of a stir as it revealed that, quote, New York Federal Reserve President John Williams convened a meeting with Wall Street dealers this week over a key short-term lending facility, underscoring officials' concerns about strains in the U.S. money markets. The hastily arranged meeting, which has not been previously reported, took place on the sidelines of the Fed's annual Treasury Market Conference on Wednesday, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. So where we go from here is starting to feel more and more obvious. I don't see a way that the Fed doesn't start printing money again in order to get ahead of a major break in the financial system. UBS, for example, just announced that it was winding down 2 of its subprime hedge funds that had exposure to the First Brands bankruptcy that we covered a little while ago. Now, this shouldn't be unexpected. Of course, there's going to be fallout from something that big, but what it shows you is that when breaks happen like this, there's always more exposure than just the primary bankruptcy. Like, there's bets on bets, just like the derivative market, just like the housing crisis. Like, mortgages went bad, but the thing that brought the system down was all the derivatives that were betting on the performance of the mortgages that also went bad as a result. Now, one of the other storylines that I think is going to get a lot of focus in the coming months is in the regional bank sector, because it looks like the Fed is now waffling on any further rate cuts. The probability just weeks ago was like at 90%, and now it's at like 40%, and we'll see what happens. Now, recall that most of the consumer debt vehicles that are important to us, like auto loans, student debt, mortgages, credit cards, these have very little to do with the federal funds rate. They're influenced a little bit by them, but the one sector that is heavily influenced by this rate is the commercial real estate market. Right now, we're in the prime window for commercial real estate 5-year balloon payments that were negotiated in the wake of the COVID crisis. So commercial property owners are very anxious to see rates come down as quickly as possible. If they don't get the relief they're looking for, then we could start to see some cascading defaults on these mortgages, which would have a real effect on the industry and an even larger impact on sentiment. Okay, let's get into headlines. We've got our first headline from the American Prospect titled, "The Shutdown is Over. SNAP's Struggles Aren't." So distributing SNAP benefits is actually kind of messy. And the government shutdown highlighted the vulnerabilities of both the population that receives them and the system that distributes them. The better way, of course, is to have an economy that doesn't force people into food insecurity, but at a minimum, we have to find a better way to streamline benefits because the USDA is increasingly at odds with the states that it partners with, and this probably won't be the last shutdown of Trump's second term. From the article, quote, "Before the shutdown ended, SNAP benefits were, to put it mildly, all over the place. A large minority of states had issued November benefits to all of their recipients. A handful of states had issued partial benefits and now need to send out the remaining funds. Some states didn't issue benefits at all and will need to send them out as soon as possible, which could overwhelm the already tenuous system." Next headline is from ProPublica. Firm tied to Kristi Noem secretly got money from $220 million DHS ad contracts. Gotta love it, huh? DHS Secretary Kristi Noem once got into hot water for hiring this very agency, which is from a friend of hers, to do work for her when she was governor. Well, now she's no longer concerned about optics in the Trump administration since everything illegal is now legal, apparently. Left is right and right is, well, further right. Quote, "This is not the first time that the strategy group has gotten public money through a Noem contract. As governor of South Dakota in 2023, her administration set off a scandal by hiring the Ohio-based company to do a different ad campaign, paying it $8.5 million in state funds." And rounding out headlines, we have a fascinating one from Truthout. Montana has an ambitious plan to end dark money in elections. This could be a radical holy shit moment for the left. 50 years. That's how long some of the conservative efforts to unmake this democracy have been in full swing. In the media, think tanks, in DC, the courtroom. Conservatives see something they despise and then they chip away at its foundation bit by bit until it comes crumbling down. Regulations, taxes, rights, democracy. This is one of the first left flank attacks that I've seen in a long time, and it's coming from the most unlikely place. Quote, "It's notable that Montana's amendment doesn't aim to overturn the Citizens United ruling. If passed, it would merely render the ruling ineffective within Montana because businesses operating in the state would have to abide by its definition of corporations. This makes it immune to national legal challenges and the whims of a Supreme Court that's even more conservative than its 2010 iteration." All right, rounding us out, we've got Pod Love and Book Love this week. Going a little mainstream for Pod Love. We're going with the weekly show with Jon Stewart because it's featuring Lena Khan, who's talking Zohran Mamdani, corporate welfare, and the FTC. So talk about a power move by Zohran to bring on the incomparable Lena Khan to lead this transition. I am here for it. And I love Jon Stewart. So there you go. And for Book Love, going back in time, we've got The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. This is a classic that belongs on every bookshelf. In it, Arendt provides a historical analysis of the origins of totalitarianism and examines its roots in imperialism, racism, and the desire for power and control. I'm confident that you'll find some familiar themes that kind of help explain, well, today. Anyway, that's it for this week's On the Record. My name is Max, and you know the drill. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to be notified of new drops. Visit UNFTR.com to sign up for the free weekly newsletter version of On the Record. And while you're there, browse our directory of progressive resources, check out our 5 non-negotiables of the left, and peruse our archive of podcasts and original essays. And of course, thank you to our members for making all of this possible. Have a great week, everyone.
This is the story of a political pundit who looked at the world around him and just said, fuck it. Gives the middle finger to authority and says, kiss my ass. But instead of a revolution, he started a podcast. Just what the world needs. basic white guy who started a podcast. But it's fun because he curses all through the podcast.